replicate it here, we can do that.
That was a joke, I made it up. Okay, we'll have Brother Harris now walk the First Minister through a bunch of questions, and I think a lot of the things that are on your mind will be answered. And if we have time at the end, we'll save 5 to 10 minutes for audience questions. But thank you for that, so go ahead.
Assalamu alaikum. Again, can we do another round of applause for that very inspirational contribution from the First Minister. I've been listening to him give multiple speeches over the past couple of days, and every single time I'm even more inspired. I think having the vision that he has, the experience that he has, and the connectivity to his faith and communities is really inspirational for all of us. So I've got a list of questions, First Minister, and I wanted to start with one that's a little bit more personal for you, probably.
Even more personal than the matrimonial question?
Even more personal than that. It's actually about your matrimony, but it's about your experience as First Minister. Your wife Nadia is Palestinian. She's actually from Gaza. And while the genocide was taking place in Gaza, you were First Minister of Scotland, and she had family. Her parents were trapped in Gaza, and you had a whole nation to run. And so the question from the audience is, how did that shape you? How did that impact your governance? And how was that impact? I'm sorry.
A little closer to you as well. If that's just a little closer.
How did that impact you in your personal life and also in your public life?
Yeah, that's a good question. You can all hear me fine?
Yes.
So for those that don't know, I was, let's see, from May, June, July, August. So I was 6 months into the job as First Minister. I've been in government for 12 years, around about 12 years, or 11 years prior to this, and had different roles, as Harris had mentioned, so I was no stranger to government. But there is quite a difference being the First Minister. And just to give you an example, whenever you're in cabinet, I was the health secretary, for example, you had to make those tough decisions on various different matters. If there was ever one you just was so finely balanced, you didn't know which way to go with it. You had option A, option B, and you talked it to death with your officials and the experts, and ultimately it was a matter of judgment, and you were worried, am I getting the judgment call right or wrong? You could always send it up to the First Minister, say like, can you give us your response? And it was, and you would get a response back from the First Minister, and you could say, right, good, that's fine. When you become First Minister, you quickly realise now you're the backstop, right? And you're getting all these portfolios asking that question. So the weight of responsibility is huge. And I'm 6 months into office, and we wake up. I've not really spoken too much about this actually. We wake up on the morning of the 7th of October, Saturday. Nadia's mum and dad had gone to Gaza to see my father-in-law's mother, so Nadia's grandmother, who was at that time, she was 93, and she was very frail. She had caught COVID. She didn't take the vaccination because it came from Israel. She just refused. Understandably, right? I mean, you can see where the suspicion for them came from. And despite our protestations, she didn't take it. She got really severely ill, and we thought this was the end. And so they went to visit her in Gaza, and alhamdulillah, she fought through. And so we wake up on October the 7th, and the phone's always charged on my side of the bed. That's where the plug sockets are. And I noticed Nadia's phone kind of flashing at 7:30 in the morning, and she has 38 messages from her mum. And I know her mum's in Gaza. She went a few days before, and I thought to myself, that can't be good. And I actually thought maybe her gran passed away. So I passed the phone to Nadia, and then immediately we put on the news. Nadia's mum had sent all these videos of rockets actually going from Gaza to Israel at that point. And of course, we were horrified by what we saw in terms of the attacks on October the 7th, but we also knew, of course, that the retaliation from Israel would be brutal. But I think even in our worst nightmares, we couldn't imagine it would be as brutal as we witnessed. And so not to tell you the whole story, but essentially, this is where the personal and the political collide, because you can't switch off being First Minister. But what I had to be at that moment was the most supportive husband I possibly could. my wife was inconsolable with grief that her mum and dad would be killed. And at the same time, in my mind, I'm saying I've got to do what every world leaders do, which is go out and say that the attack on October 7th is condemnable. You can't justify the kidnapping of children and babies and the elderly. And therefore, I had to have a really difficult conversation, for example, that day with my wife to say, I've got to put this statement out as First Minister of the country, but there might be a reprisal from Hamas against your parents and your family who are in Gaza. And you've got to, and that was a really tough conversation to have. And the next 4 weeks were, in truth, the four most difficult weeks of our lives. Because not only am I doing my best to try to extract my in-laws from Gaza with virtually no help from the Foreign Secretary, the UK Foreign Secretary at the time, who really was worse than useless. We had to show leadership. I was the first European leader to call for a ceasefire. And you remember, no other leader wanted to call for a ceasefire. In fact, they were actively saying there should be a ceasefire. And to be truthful with you, many of my advisors were saying to me, please don't make that call, because it puts us out with where the rest of the European leaders are, and the Western leaders are. You know, Justin Trudeau at the time, Biden, of course, at the time, Macron, all these leaders, none of them were saying ceasefire. In fact, again, they were actively saying there should not be a ceasefire. You had all of that, then you had to run the government, the country. I had to make sure that the Jewish community and the Muslim community didn't fracture. And so I was bringing them together. And I'd always had a very strong relationship with the Jewish community. And I was also, during those 4 weeks, about to address my party conference for the very first time as leader. Wow. And a divided party, because we had a really tough leadership contest at the time. But to my dying day, my last breath, I will always believe, of course, because it's in our haqq, that Wallahu khairul makirin, that Allah is the blessed planners, that I was put obviously in that position for a reason. I hope to do some good domestically, but also to try to hopefully bring a voice of reason and justice on the issue of Gaza, when I think so few European leaders in particular were willing to do so. So look, from a personal perspective, if I'm really truthful, I'm sorry it's a long answer to your very short question, but as a truthful, it was probably the 4 most difficult weeks of my life, where the political and the personal were absolutely colliding in a way that was intertwined and inextricable.
That's very powerful. I can't imagine being in a situation like that. I'm going to build on this a little bit, because I think this is really important. A lot of times we as communities expect our leaders to be perfect in almost every single way, especially our political leaders. We expect perfection, we expect purity. I would love to hear from you what advice you would give someone like a Zohran Mamdani, who is going to be a mayor of the largest city in this country, over 8 million people, a city that is extremely diverse.
Yeah.
You've got Jewish Americans, Muslim Americans, Black Americans, Latino Americans,
gay Americans,
everyone is there. And the expectation from him is that he will be perfect in every decision that he makes. What advice would you give someone like Zohran while being able to preserve his principles and values and ethics, at the same time govern such a diverse city with so many different interests?
Yeah, what a question. So first of all, I would say that Zohran has done pretty well in life without my advice. So I wouldn't presume that he needs my advice at all. But obviously, given the experience I've had, and I look forward to, I think we're trying to arrange a call with him, inshallah. We'll hopefully get that in the coming days. I look forward to speaking to him and trying to be as helpful as I can. But he's, mashallah, done so incredibly well. I think he's a once-in-a-generation talent, actually, in New York. Actually, my advice would be more for the community, if I'm honest. My advice for the community would be, do not look to your politicians for spiritual purity and guidance. I mean, it's almost stating the obvious, but it has to be said. If you want spiritual guidance, go to your imams, your ulama, your sheikh, and your sheikhas. Don't go to your politicians for spiritual guidance. We operate in a completely different prism and an environment than most people have to navigate. And Zohran like I was First Minister for all of Scotland, Zohran has to be Mayor for all of New York. People that voted for him, people that didn't vote for him. People that are Muslim, people that are anti-Muslim. People that are Jewish, atheist, agnostic, people that are gay, that are bisexual, that are trans, that are straight, all of that. And don't follow him for that spiritual guidance. That's not his job. His job isn't to provide, you know, we can be proud of him being Muslim, he can be unapologetically Muslim, or he can, it's up to him how much he decides to show his Muslimness. So far I think he's very proud of it, which is great.
He went to Jummah prayer today,
Jummah prayer today.
And he gave a talk after the khutbah, so...
Yeah, no, which I think is great, and I was doing the same. You'll remember, look, some of you might have seen that photo when I first became First Minister. It was the first day we got into my official residence, which is called Bute House, a wonderful Georgian townhouse in Edinburgh. And it was Ramadan, and I became First Minister, and so I invited the family for the first night I was there to come in and do iftar. We broke fast, and then we prayed Maghrib. And my photographer, not Michael, his predecessor, was taking some photos, and he said, "Look, First Minister, I've got a photo of you and your family praying. Do you want it on socials or not? Whatever you want." And me and my family debated it. My mum was dead against it, and because she always worries about her beta. Whereas me and my sisters were saying, actually, we should. Anyway, I took the executive decision. I pulled rank as First Minister, which is the only time I could do it, and said we're going to post it. Why? Because I wanted to normalise the fact that the First Minister prays. Like, that's what we do, right? So as part of our, whether you pray once a day, 5 times a day, whatever, or only during Ramadan, whatever. That's part of our faith, is to pray. And so it's part of my daily ritual. So why would I not post it? We should normalise the fact that the Mayor of New York, or Mayor-elect, is going to Jummah prayer, because that's what we do on Friday, because it's Jummah prayer, right? So we've got to normalise all of this. And what we have to do, and this is the last bit of the answer to the question, is if you thought the attacks on Zohran were bad during the election campaign, you ain't seen nothing yet. Because I'm telling you now, when he assumes office, you know, he's got kind of 50 odd days plus more of transition.
How many days of transition did you have?
I had 59 minutes. He has 59 days, I had 59 minutes. Genuinely, my result got announced at 2 p.m. By 3 p.m. I was in St Andrew's House, the Government House, deciding the budget for the future. Yeah, I mean, that's to the side. He is going to come under huge attack. And whether you agree with him, don't agree with him, like his policy, don't like his policy, if we're not providing him support, don't expect anybody else to support him.
Moving to the topic that you addressed during your keynote about Islamophobia and its manifestations both in the US and in the UK and in Europe. We've been seeing for now decades that there is ties between Islamophobes here in America, Islamophobes in Europe, in the UK, and that those ties have become stronger and stronger, and that they share resources, they share strategies. Can you talk to us a little bit about that transatlantic Islamophobic network and how it impacts Muslims in the UK and Scotland, and how it's going to impact American Muslims as well?
Did you guys hear Harris's question?
You did? Oh, okay, I'm sorry. I'll be louder.
I can see some people so amused that they see this Scottish guy with a Scottish accent who's brown. He speaks about Urdu, huh? Their heads are about to explode.
But we can understand you. I mean,
yeah, that's true.
The real Scottish is even worse.
I'm speaking very slowly, just for you, Doctor.
Yes, I understand that.
You know, the first time I came to America, actually, believe it or not, was part of a State Department program, the IVLP program. And there was 19, I think it was 19 of us, from various European delegations, countries. And so there was 3 from the UK, including my own cousin actually. And every time I spoke, all the rest of the European delegation would look towards my cousin and say, "Can you translate?" I said, "What do you mean? I'm the one who's speaking English." Anyway, this is a really important point, and I hope it came through in my contribution, that the far right in the United States and the United Kingdom, who are driven almost exclusively by anti-Muslim hatred, right? Almost exclusively, They are sharing scripts, they're sharing talking points, they're funding each other's campaigns. You know Tommy Robinson, who's the Islamophobe in chief in the United Kingdom, right? He talks about Islam as being, his own words are Islam is a violent and fascist ideology and a mental illness. That's what he describes Islam as, right? He just had a legal case in the courts in the UK. Take one guess who funded that legal case. Elon Musk. Elon Musk, close. Elon Musk funded that, right? So they're literally funding each other and they're networking together. Nigel Farage, who has made many an anti-Muslim comment over the years and over decades, speaks at conferences here all the time in the United States. And in the UK, maybe a couple of months ago now, we had 150,000 people in London marching behind Tommy Robinson. And who was one of the speakers? This crazy woman who's going for congressional elections in, I think, Texas, Valentina Gomez, the one who burned the Quran with a flamethrower, was in London speaking at that rally. So if they're exchanging resources and knowledge and expertise, then what the hell are we doing? Like, why are you working in the United States and I'm working in the UK and we're not sharing any information? Look, it's part of the, truthfully, it's part of the reason why I'm here. I'm not here just to do the speaking tour, as I said. I'm enjoying meeting you all, but I'm deadly serious about the fact that we've got to create a transatlantic alliance. And Impact, we met with Care Chicago today. We've obviously met with the brothers like Abdullah Mitchell and the team at the council. And we've got to pool our resources and our talent together. Otherwise, they're going to be miles ahead of us. And we've got to, and by the way, we have plenty of talent. We've got big numbers in terms of our population. We've got people with very deep pockets who I think are understanding the mission that we're on. And then we've just got to coordinate and take some action.
Could you add the Hindutva in this also?
Yeah, I think that's a good point. So Hindutva is not as big in the UK, but definitely growing. In the US, it's crazy growing.
Yeah.
It's really big.
Yeah.
But also, I have to confess, I've greatly enjoyed in the last few weeks watching some real stupid, useful idiots like Vivek and Dinesh D'Souza, who were part of the MAGA, part of the, encouraging and amplifying the racists, and now those racists are turning against them. And they're like, how did this happen? Well, how do you think it happened, you idiot? I mean, did you honestly think as a brown person they would love you? Like, how stupid can you be? The most useful idiots that movement ever had, and now they're crying because those people are turning against them. But yeah, look, it's the same anti-Muslim core that is behind Hindutva, that is behind the far right, and they're coordinating. And what's their common enemy? Us.
Yes.
Right? So you're absolutely right.
And Chicago is actually one of the centers of
really?
of Hindutva power
Yeah.
resources. Greater Chicago is definitely one of the centers that. We had a really interesting question, First Minister, from the audience about the role of political leaders and elected officials and the role of citizens. And the question is it enough to elect people like yourself, like Mandani, like Sadiq Khan, and others? Is that enough to push policy change and reform?
No.
And what is the role of citizens in organizing? Can you talk a little bit about that?
Yeah, so it's not enough. It's definitely not enough. It's a really good question, but it's not enough. Look, the problem is that Sadiq, me, and Zohran are the exception to the rule, right? We need not just more people and Muslim, and not just Muslims, but people who are rooted in values and a vision to better humanity. Because look, I'm not going to name names, but I can tell you some Muslims in the UK that have rose to political power and actually they've worked actively against their own community, right? And I'm certain you can probably give me examples, I suspect, in the US. And again, we don't need to name names, you just know who those individuals are, right? And so, but being in the front line is not enough. Inshallah, I'm leaving politics at March next year. I'm standing down at the next election because I've done 20 odd years both in the background and the forefront. And once you've done First Minister, alhamdulillah, you have a lot of experience that you want to share with the world in a way that you maybe can't when you're constrained in Parliament. So one of the things I'll be putting my energy and effort into is nurturing the next cohort of Muslim leadership, both in the UK and I hope to do it in the US with partners like MPAC as well, because this is where the real challenge is. But we don't just want to help to encourage Muslims and empower them into frontline politics. Yes, that's important. But we need the chiefs of staff. We need to be the policy advisors. We need to be the civil servants in the United Kingdom. We need to be the permanent secretaries. They're the heads of the departments. We need to be the senior legal counsel. We need to be across the whole landscape, not just in politics. We've got to encourage our people into the landscape of media. I would suggest digital media as well, and probably entrepreneurship, particularly in tech, because who was in the front row of Trump's inauguration? Zuckerberg, Musk, Bezos, I never remember the Google guy's name. Shanai, Panda, what's his name? Thank you, Yanni, you know who he is. So we, at the next president's inauguration, or the one after that, we need to say, well, what does it take to have a Muslim there? Not for the sake of just helping Muslims, no, but as I keep saying, for the betterment of humanity.
That's a really important point. Moving to a question about the Muslim world. So we've got a few questions about the Muslim world, and I'll summarize. And Muslim majority nations, I think the question is not Muslim world, but Muslim majority nations. And the question is regarding a point that you made in your keynote, which was, you know, when President Trump took his first trip in the second term, went to the Middle East, yet was not able to get even a loaf of bread into Gaza. What is it with the power, with the money, with the potential influence, with all of this investment, why is it that they're unable to make even such basic impact on the world stage and be able to even deliver a loaf of bread to their neighbor?
Complete lack of purpose, complete lack of grounding in value, beyond self-interest and self-preservation, and weakness. I truthfully don't get it, in all honesty. Look, I was First Minister for a period, and as somebody who is of faith, you know, my belief is that one day I'm going to meet my Maker. And I think, regardless of how practicing or not practicing leaders are, some of them are very practicing actually, that I've met over the years. But regardless of how practicing or not practicing they are, even if you have a little iota of faith and you believe that one day you're going to meet your Lord, that's your belief. For some people it's not, but it's our belief, my belief. If you have that little bit of belief, I truthfully don't know how they can possibly sleep at night, knowing that their brothers and sisters in Gaza were dying in front of their eyes, and they had all that money, all that wealth, armies, even something like a no-fly zone, for example. You know, I mean, it's so I truthfully don't understand it, and I don't know how they can sleep, because I struggle to sleep, thinking, am I doing enough? And I didn't have an independent state. You know, I was a devolved nation, or kind of almost a kind of federal structure that we've got. And so, you know, I think what we have to try to do is create, and it's going to take time, it's not going to happen overnight. We need to try to create leaders who are grounded in purpose. Because if you know what the mission is, which again is betterment of humanity, then wherever that injustice occurs, it doesn't just have to be Gaza or Sudan, which are Muslim countries, and countries with large numbers of Muslims in them, but actually even wars and conflicts that are taking place in non-Muslim countries, we should be the first to make sure that justice prevails and that peace prevails, and do what we can to use our money and our leverage. And in fairness to the state of Qatar, I would give them some credit, because they're working and have been working hard to try to make peace in their small country, in a small nation, although a wealthy one nonetheless, to try to make peace. And they've actually done a lot of peace initiatives and efforts in countries that are Muslim and non-Muslim over the years, and done that quite quietly and just got on with it. So we need leaders that have a grounding, I think, in purpose.
I think the last question I was given a tap, so I think the last question I'm going to ask you is, again, a bit more, I'll come back to the personal side. We've talked a little bit about policy, about elections, about all of that. The last question from the audience is, when you were First Minister, what was your biggest challenge? What was your biggest challenge or challenges in being able to govern? Yeah.
I think some of the hardest things in government is somebody just walked in with a Zohran t-shirt. Where did you get that? I need to get myself. Sorry, I didn't mean to. Everybody there to turn around. I was just surprised to see it. I need to get one of those t-shirts. So when you come into government, I think the Labour Party in the United Kingdom is figuring this out. Very tough lesson, and Zohran will find it out as well. Although you get the overview of maybe how difficult the budget is or how difficult the XYZ problem is, once you come into the seat of government, they tell you really how bad it is. Right? They pull back the curtain and say not only is it really bad this year, you've got this pressure coming in 26, 27, 28 and 29, which is only going to increase you. So your room to manoeuvre is really constrained, really tight. Even more so when you're a devolved nation like Scotland, because you don't have all the fiscal powers and all the monetary powers. The external factors, so you can control what you can control, but sometimes there's things that are so out with your control and can damage you very hard politically. In my case, my predecessor got arrested in an investigation about embezzlement of funds. And her husband got arrested, who is the chief executive of the party, the former. Now she's been, I should say, she's been found cleared of any charge and not guilty and so on. But you can imagine, literally a police tent was pitched on her garden, right? And this is within 8 weeks of me being, 8 weeks? No, 4 weeks. 4 weeks.
Wow.
No, less than that. My God, oh God, it was only 2 weeks. My predecessor gets a police tent on her. So I can't control that. I had no idea it was coming. Got a phone call at 7:45 in the morning, saying, by the way, we've just had news that Nicola Sturgeon's house has been raided and party headquarters have been raided and they're doing an investigation. And it goes global. So there's things that you can't control. And I think the last thing I would say is, the thing with Muslims in public office, and I would encourage any Muslim, by the way, to get involved in politics. I think it's one of the best ways to make and affect change. But I would also say to you as a Muslim, and even more so if you're a Muslim woman, you've got to go in with your eyes wide open in terms of the weight of attack that you will get against you. And that, not to put you off, but it's to say that you've got to try to make sure that you protect yourself and take the appropriate measures to protect yourself, because I'm afraid all of us, Ilhan, me, Sadiq, Zohran, I suspect, all of us will have death threats, rape threats against my wife. I had to give my 14-year-old, she's 16 now, but at the time 14-year-old, a GPS located personal alarm. We had to get a room installed in our house. It is really, it's not abstract, it is real. So listen, just again, my thanks to the community here, and just continue to keep us in your du'as. I think those that are in public office, we need your prayers as well as your support as well.
Thank you so much. If you don't mind, we have a lot of questions that are coming in. In the interest of time, maybe we'll do a rapid fire style, 2 minutes each or less, and then go back. And some of these topics have been covered, but some themes were there. A lot of people are saying they're very, very proud of you, and just the fact that you were elected to the highest office. And I think the picture of you having prayed with your family in Ramadan went viral everywhere in the US. So extremely proud. And the question really is, I think what you've talked about is, how hard was it to get elected to the highest office when you were competing against the white community and everybody else out there? How hard was it?
Well, look, I'm really blessed to live in Scotland. I mean, I'm obviously biased, but I happen to think it's the best country in the world. So, for me, my constituency, which I've been re-elected to on a number of occasions, and with an increased majority last time actually, is 95% white non-Muslim, right? So maybe 5% Muslim, if not less than that. And I think you do that by, yes, being proud of who you are, but also you've got to demonstrate the work on the ground. Why was Zohran so popular? Yes, he was great digitally, creative, a breath of fresh air, but his policies really resonated with people. New Yorkers are struggling during a cost of living crisis. Yeah, they want to hear about how do you lower rents in a city where rent is sky high. The idea of free transport and bus travel, fantastic. And the idea of city-owned grocery stores, because people's groceries have gone through the roof because of sky-high inflation, right? Or really high inflation over the years. So you've got to be really focused on that domestic agenda. as well as, I suppose, the international issues.
Got it, thank you. And question came in about your term. You stepped down just a little over a year. Did it have anything to do with Islamophobia? What was the internal politics to the extent you can share?
Yeah, no, I mean, honestly, truthfully, no. Politics, is. You can tell I'm married to a Palestinian, I keep saying Yani. Politics, sometimes things are in your control, some things are out with your control. When you're a minority party and you make a decision, and I regret actually how I made that decision, not the decision itself, but how it was executed. But ultimately, when I was in, not coalition, but we had a partnership agreement, because we're a minority party, not majority government. I had a cooperation agreement with the Green Party. Most of our policies aligned, but I'm afraid there was so much pressure internally for me to break that agreement, and ultimately it was the right thing to do. The way perhaps it was executed meant that the Green Party voted with the Conservatives, which is something they've never done before, in order to then bring my term to an end. And you know, it was a tough time actually. You always want to be the master of your own fate. You want to resign or step down when your time is right. And I kind of moped around for about 3 weeks afterwards. And then my wife, and I won't use the language that she used because I'm in a mosque, but she basically said a version of, you know, Alhamdulillah, you've been in government for 12 years, you've held the highest office in the country, you still left with your integrity, because people were saying that you took the honourable decision, you know, to stand down. And you're not even, and this is where the expletive came in, but you're not even blooming 40 yet. So she gave me the real dose of reality that I require. Sometimes your spouse needs to give you that in a way that nobody else can.
I know that well.
I bet you do. You know, alhamdulillah, we've never looked back since, because it's really opened up an opportunity for me to do other things and speak in a way that perhaps in government you can't always do. So, as I say, Wallahu khairul makirin.
Right, thank you. And let me group 3 or so questions, foreign policy. You know, Sami Hamdi is incarcerated by ICE. We actually were worried about your entry, and we had Zoom arrangements and everything else, right?
Yeah.
Alhamdulillah, we're glad you came in without any issues. I was texting Haris yesterday or the day before. So a question is, what exactly, how much influence can we have in this day and age when you speak out about anything, even the people who are influencers are getting locked up? And then, you know, what Muslim nations can be doing? Are they considered weak because they don't have democratic systems themselves? Question about how much influence does Scotland have over UK or US foreign policy? And then lastly, just final advice to young people about what can they be doing now to prepare for all the adversity in their life? So mostly like really at a macro level, what can really be done, and then maybe at the micro level for the young folks who are interested.
Look at the macro level, and I think it's a real scandal that Sami's been detained, continues to be detained, and I think the British government are pathetically weak for not stepping in and doing more to release him. I think it is very ironic that J.D. Vance, the Vice President, decided to come to Europe early on and lecture us on free speech. And yet it seems to me that if you disagree with the United States on foreign policy, you're at real threat of deportation, having your citizenship shredded, and then being incarcerated. And whatever happened to the nation that has in its constitution the First Amendment, you know, whatever happened, and that's why this work of impact, First Amendment Centre, the work they're doing is so important. And that's why I'd encourage you to really get involved in the work of impact, support, donate, volunteer, whatever you can do with impact, you absolutely should, because they're doing this important work. And others are doing it. We've had Care Chicago, you do quite a bit in the litigation space as well, so these organisations absolutely should be supported for standing up for free speech. I think and look, in the Muslim countries, I've not really got much else to say. I could have said what I've said. I think every nation in the world has to look at itself and ask, did you do enough? And the answer for every nation is no. Yeah. Because how could we have done enough when we've seen this live stream genocide take place in Gaza? And by the way, what we're witnessing in Sudan is horrendous, beyond belief as well. And in terms of young people, For me, I think the advice for young people would be, we really need you. Because young people have an enormous amount of drive, a real energy, lacking inhibition, so we hold ourselves back quite a lot. And they're so creative. So what takes my 16-year-old daughter, the content she can make in 3 minutes, takes me about 3 weeks. But genuinely, I'm sitting there kind of, and I'm pretty good on social media, but she's incredibly good on it. And we've got to harness that talent. We've got to nurture it. We've got to encourage it. Well, first we've got to identify it, actually. Then we've got to harness it, nurture it, support it. And if they want to get involved in politics, which I really encourage you to do, you've got to remember my journey from photocopier intern to First Minister was 20 years, right? So it takes 20 years, and that, by the way, is probably a pretty quick rise. For some people, it takes 30 years plus. But we've got to support them throughout that entire journey, because politics is not linear. You get put out of office, there can be government scandal, there can be things out with your control, there can be personal scandal, there can be personal issues in your personal life that happen. And so the journey is never just straightforward. And we've got to provide the support network and the scaffolding for our young people, so that when they do trip, that we're there to pick them up. And we've got to, as I say, nurture that talent through master classes, through upskilling them, but use their talent, particularly in the creative sector. And I think my last point I'd make on this is some of the message I'm giving to our entrepreneurs and philanthropists in the United Kingdom and here in the United States is, look, we're very generous as a community. By some estimates, global zakat is almost $1 trillion. I mean, that's the higher end estimates. Lower end estimate, 200 to 300 billion US dollars. So we're very generous as a community. That's zakat, by the way, not even sadaqah. And so imagine we were able to put a fraction of that into investing in our people and into digital creativity and into politics or media and business, but investing in our people and our communities, not just on building water wells or orphanages or schools. These are good things, by the way, to invest in, but also just using a fraction to invest in our people and our communities. Inshallah, we will see a great return on that investment.
Thank you. Our program is supposed to end at 7:56. We'll call it early, 4 minutes. But thank you, First Minister, for your time, for making your journey over here. Thank you to Horace, thank you to CIOGC, thank you to Mecca, and thank you to you all for being here. It really means a lot. And thank you again, and have a good, safe evening, inshallah.
Thank you very much.